You ever have one of those moments where someone you love drops a sentence so casually, yet it splits your whole world open? That was me 3 Thursdays ago at exactly 7:14 p.m., fork halfway to my mouth, when my wife looked across the dinner table and said, "I think we should adopt a child." Just like that. No lead-in, no warning. 1 second we were eating leftover lasagna, the next she was talking about changing our lives forever. I blinked slowly. I heard her, but I needed a second to process. Adopt a child? I repeated, as if saying it out loud would make it sound less huge. She nodded, smiling. That smile, I've known it for years. It's the one she wears when she's already imagined the whole thing working out perfectly in her head. When her mind's 5 miles down the road and I'm still tying my shoes. Yeah, she said softly. I've been thinking about it for a while. I didn't want to bring it up until I was sure. That's when it hit me, she had been thinking about this for a while. Probably late at night after I'd fallen asleep. Probably when she saw that commercial with the kids in foster care. Probably during her walks around the lake, the ones I never joined her on because I was too tired. She'd been carrying this idea quietly, alone, and now she was handing it to me like a gift. But it didn't feel like a gift. It felt like a cliff. I chewed slowly, buying time. My heart started racing, not because I didn't love kids, I do, but because we already had a rhythm, her and me. Weekends at the cabin, quiet mornings with coffee and crossword puzzles, spontaneous movie nights on the couch. We'd made it through the early chaos of marriage, the grind of building careers, the heartbreak of failed pregnancies we stopped talking about. And now, in our early 40s, we'd found peace. Or at least I thought we had. I put my fork down. "Where's this coming from?" I asked. She didn't flinch. "It's always been there. Just buried under all the other stuff." Then she leaned forward, eyes shining. "I don't want to leave this life having never mothered someone." Not really. That last part hit like a truck. Not really. We had nieces and nephews, and sure, we were the fun couple at family events. But I knew what she meant. She meant waking up in the middle of the night for someone who calls you mom. She meant scraped knees, math homework, and messy bedrooms. She meant love with no bloodline. I didn't know what to say. My hands were sweating. The air felt too thick. She watched me, hopeful but calm, like she was ready to carry my hesitation if I needed her to. "You don't have to say yes tonight," she said. "I just needed you to know." We cleaned up dinner in silence. I kept glancing at her, wondering how long she'd been waiting to say it, wondering what it meant that she'd waited until now. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I wasn't ready. I didn't feel equipped to open our home to a child, not like that. Not when the peace we'd fought so hard for was finally here. But what scared me more was the thought of saying no and watching her face harden, her eyes pull away, knowing I had just stepped off a path she was meant to walk. And that's where I am now, stuck between the safety of what we have and the terrifying unknown of what she wants. How do you choose between the life you built and the person you built it with? The next morning, I woke up before her, which almost never happens. I sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on knees, staring at the floor like it held the answers. The house was quiet, still wrapped in that soft pre-dawn blue. And in that silence, her words from the night before echoed like a siren. "I don't want to leave this life having never mothered someone." I didn't move. Didn't reach for my phone. Didn't start the coffee. I just sat there, frozen by the weight of a question I didn't ask for. How do you tell the woman you love that you're afraid? Not just regular afraid, but the kind of fear that sits in your bones, the fear of not being enough. Of screwing up someone else's life. Of loving a child and not knowing how to heal the pieces they come with. When she finally stirred, I pretended to be scrolling emails. She kissed my shoulder like always, warm and effortless, then padded off to the bathroom, humming under her breath. Like everything was normal. But it wasn't. That day, I couldn't focus at work. Every spreadsheet blurred, every meeting felt like static. I caught myself staring out the window, watching a dad outside push his toddler on a swing. The kid's laugh drifted up like a song, and I felt it like a punch in the chest. I imagined us at that park, me pushing a kid who didn't have my nose or my name but maybe, just maybe, called me dad anyway. And I couldn't tell if the image warmed me or broke me. That night, I tried to bring it up casually. "So, what kind of adoption were you thinking?" She looked up from the sink, surprised. "Domestic, maybe? A toddler or older? Someone who's already waiting." I nodded, but it was like hearing a foreign language. I was thinking babies. Blank slates. Not kids with stories, with traumas, with memories of other homes. My stomach turned. "That's a lot," I said, keeping my tone light. "That's a lot to take on." She dried her hands and came to stand beside me. "It is. But it's also a lot of love to give." I didn't know how to explain it, the gnawing knot in my chest. I've always been the guy who builds, fixes, supports. I fix things. I solve problems. But this wasn't a broken pipe or a cracked foundation. This was a living, breathing decision that would shape someone else's life and ours. I spent the weekend doing what I always do when I feel out of control, chores. I reorganized the garage, pressure washed the back deck, even replaced the stupid broken fence post that had been loose for 3 years. All while she moved through the house gently, respectfully, like she could feel me retreating into myself. And then Sunday night, as we sat side by side on the porch, she finally said, "You don't want this, do you?" My chest tightened. I wanted to lie, to smile and nod and give her the yes she was hoping for. But I couldn't. "I don't know," I whispered. "I'm scared, Ellie. Scared that I won't be good at it. Scared I'll disappoint you. Or worse, disappoint a kid who's already had too much disappointment in their life." She looked down, then back at me. "You think I'm not scared too?" That's when I saw it under her calm, the same storm I was drowning in. "But fear isn't the reason not to try," she said. "It's the reason to do it with everything you've got." I didn't speak. Couldn't. Because how do you argue with that? Fear isn't the reason to walk away. It's the reason to show up. But still, what if showing up isn't enough? The following week was like walking a tightrope with no net. I wasn't sure what to say or how to act. She didn't push, which almost made it worse. She didn't bring it up again, didn't leave brochures around the house or link me to adoption articles. She just gave me space. And that silence felt like a countdown. Every moment she didn't ask was a moment I knew I owed her an answer. But what answer could I give when I didn't even know where I stood? My thoughts chased each other like wildfire. I'd start to convince myself we could do this, maybe even be good at it. Then I'd spiral, imagining sleepless nights, tantrums, therapy sessions, the slow, aching unraveling of everything we'd built. And just when I thought I was close to clarity, I'd see her laughing at a video of our niece on her phone or folding a pair of tiny socks someone gifted us years ago that we never used, and I'd crumble all over again. One night, I went for a drive. No destination, just miles. Windows down, late summer air creeping through, the kind that smells like grass and pavement and endings. I ended up at a diner we used to visit when we were first married. A small, greasy place with cracked vinyl booths and a jukebox that hasn't worked since 2012. I slid into our old booth, ordered coffee I didn't need, and just sat. Across the room, a young couple wrangled a boy about 6, maybe 7. He had curly hair, syrup on his fingers, and a smile that stretched wider than the sky. I watched them, the way they moved around him, exchanged glances, helped him wipe his hands. They looked tired. But they looked like a team. I tried to imagine myself there. I tried to see that boy in my life. I tried to see myself not just surviving it, but showing up for it. Fully. And for a minute. I did. And then I didn't. That's how it's been. Back and forth. Light and dark. A pendulum swinging between hope and panic. When I got home that night, she was asleep on the couch. Wrapped in a blanket, TV still playing softly. I stood there a while, just watching her breathe. The woman who'd built a life with me out of nothing but love, grit, and mutual stubbornness. We'd made it through job losses, health scares, family deaths, and 4 long, excruciating years of infertility. We had wounds, both of us, but we'd always healed together. And now I could feel the distance blooming again, not because we didn't love each other, but because we wanted different versions of the same dream. The next morning, she didn't mention my late-night escape. She just poured my coffee, kissed my temple, and asked if I wanted toast. It broke me, her kindness. Her patience. Her willingness to wait while I figured it out. That afternoon, I walked into an adoption agency. I didn't tell her. I wasn't ready for that part yet. I just needed to look. To ask questions. To hear from people who'd walked this road already. A social worker named Dana greeted me. She had kind eyes and a direct tone. First time, she asked. I nodded. She smiled. Let's start simple. What scares you the most? I didn't even hesitate. What if I can't love them like they deserve? She didn't blink. Every parent has that fear. Bio or adopted. It's not about where the love starts. It's about where it leads. That sentence stayed with me for days. I wrote it down. Read it again before bed. Still, the fear was there. Heavy. Constant. Because saying yes to this meant saying goodbye to the life I thought we were going to live. But saying no might mean losing her. I don't know what I expected to happen after I visited that agency. Maybe some epiphany. A thunderclap of clarity. Instead, I came home more confused. More aware of how much I didn't know. That evening, she was in the garden, knees dusty, pulling weeds around the tomatoes. It hit me that she was always tending something: plants, people, dreams. Always nurturing. And I was always building walls. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. No questions. Just, dinner's in the oven. I made your mom's meatloaf. I nodded. Thanked her. Tried to smile. But I could feel it, that unspoken thing between us growing louder in its silence. We barely talked through dinner. She cleaned the dishes. I took out the trash. Normal things. But not really. Because everything had changed and nothing had been said. And then, that night, just as I was about to slip under the covers, she said, "You know I'm not trying to pressure you, right?" Her voice was calm, but it had a shake in it. I turned to look at her. "I know. But you also haven't said how you really feel. Not once. And I can't keep waiting forever, Will." Hearing her use my full name, not babe, not love, not honey, felt like a line being drawn. I sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing my hands together. "I'm scared I'm not cut out for this." "Because it's hard?" she asked. "Because it's not what we planned?" "No," I said. "Because it's not what I planned. And maybe that makes me selfish." She looked down, then met my eyes. "You're not selfish. But you're scared to let go of a life we don't even live anymore." That hit me in the chest. Because she was right. We weren't the couple that used to sleep in on Sundays and go to jazz brunches. We weren't taking spontaneous road trips or working late and grabbing takeout on the way home. We were, here, in a house with quiet rooms and long evenings. The life I was trying to protect didn't even exist anymore. I got up early the next morning and drove 2 hours to meet my old college friend, Darren, who had adopted twin boys 3 years ago. We hadn't talked in months, but when he saw me at the cafe, he hugged me like no time had passed. "Let me guess," he said, sliding into the booth. "You're either moving, adopting, or questioning your entire existence." "Door number 2, I muttered. He laughed. "Man, I've been there." And for the next hour, he told me everything. The panic, the paperwork, the waiting. The first tantrum. The first time one of the boys called him dad. The nights he cried in the bathroom, wondering if he'd made a mistake. And the mornings he woke up knowing he hadn't. "You think you're supposed to feel ready," he said, "but it's not about ready. It's about willing. You willing to show up even when it's messy?" I didn't answer right away. But that question haunted me the whole drive home. That night, I sat next to her in bed and told her where I'd gone. Her eyes widened, surprised. "You did that without telling me?" "I needed to hear it from someone who'd done it," I said. "I needed to know if the fear ever goes away." She waited. "And does it?" "No," I admitted. "But they said you learned to live with it. To parent through it." She reached for my hand. "That's the truest thing I've heard all week." We sat like that, holding hands in the quiet glow of the bedside lamp. And for the first time in weeks, it didn't feel like something was breaking. It felt like something was beginning. Still terrifying. But possible. I thought things would get easier after that. Like maybe saying it out loud, my fear, my doubts, would loosen the knot inside me. And for a couple days it did. We started talking more. Not just about adoption, but about everything. Our dreams. The quiet parts of our hearts we usually kept to ourselves. She even showed me a photo of a little girl on the agency's website. Brown curls, serious eyes. "She's 6, Ellie said, voice gentle. "Been in the system since she was 3. I didn't say anything. I just looked at the picture. That little face staring back at me. No smile, no pose. Just raw, unfiltered presence. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her face kept flashing through my mind. I kept asking myself, could I be her dad? Could I look into those serious eyes and offer something real, something safe? And what if I failed her? What if she grew up one day and looked at me with resentment instead of love? What if I wasn't enough to heal whatever had broken before she ever met us? The next morning, Ellie was already dressed when I came downstairs. Coffee in hand. Keys by the door. "I've got a volunteer shift at the community center," she said. "Don't wait on me for lunch." I nodded. Watched her leave. Watched the door close. And that's when the thought hit me, not a spark, not a whisper, but a lightning bolt through the chest. She's already halfway gone. I could feel it. Not because she didn't love me, but because she was already reaching toward a future I wasn't moving fast enough to join. A future that might not wait for me. I spent the rest of the morning wandering the house like a ghost. Every photo on the wall felt different now. Our wedding picture, us at the lake, birthdays, holidays, all moments we had lived just the two of us. Now each one felt like it was being gently packed into a memory box while she waited to open a new chapter. One that may or may not include me. Later that evening, we sat on the back porch watching the sun sink behind the fence. The air smelled like basil and cut grass. She turned to me and said, "I think I'm going to submit our interest form for her." I looked at her. Really looked. And I knew then that she couldn't hold this in her heart anymore. It wasn't a whim. It was a calling. "You don't need my permission," I said quietly. "But you do need my partnership. And I'm still not there yet." She swallowed. "Then maybe you need to figure out if you'll ever be." The silence that followed was heavier than anything I've ever felt. And then she said it, not mean, not angry, just honest, because I can't keep my life on pause waiting for you to be ready. Not with a kid out there who needs someone now. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't an ultimatum. It was her truth. And it shattered me. That night, I stood in the bathroom, toothbrush hanging limp in my hand, staring at myself in the mirror. Who was I, really? A man who played it safe? Who stayed inside the lines because it was easier than risking something? Or was I someone who could step up not because it was easy, but because it mattered? That girl in the photo didn't need perfect. She needed present. She needed someone who would show up even afraid. Could I be that? Could I finally let go of the life I thought we'd have to embrace the one that was choosing us? The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. I came downstairs and found a note on the kitchen table written in her handwriting, the one I knew by heart from birthday cards and sticky notes left on the fridge. Gone to stay with my sister for a few days. I need space to think. Please don't make me regret telling you how I feel. I sat down hard in the chair, the paper trembling in my hand. I felt the silence pressing in from all sides. The sound of her absence was louder than anything I'd heard in weeks. She was gone. Not permanently, not yet, but gone enough to make it real. And suddenly all those fears I'd been clinging to felt like excuses. Empty reasons to protect a comfort that was already dying. I walked through the house like it was unfamiliar. Her slippers by the back door. The dog-eared novel she was reading on the arm of the couch. The faint smell of her lavender shampoo in the upstairs hallway. Everything reminded me of her and everything screamed one thing: you waited too long. I didn't sleep that night. Or the night after. I couldn't eat. Couldn't think. I kept staring at that photo on the agency website. That little girl. Still there. Still waiting. And the woman I loved? Also waiting. But no longer for a perfect answer. Just for any answer at all. On the third day, I drove to the agency again. Dana saw me in the lobby and raised an eyebrow. Back so soon? I need to talk, I said. Good, she replied. Because we just got an update about the girl you asked about. My stomach flipped. She's being transferred, Dana said gently. A new family is interested. She'll be placed with them by next week unless your file moves forward. She paused. But time's short. I nodded slowly. Something inside me snapped into place, not in panic, not in desperation, but in clarity. I left the agency, got into my car, and just sat there. Hands on the wheel. Heart in my throat. I didn't cry, not yet. But something inside me broke free. All those fears? Still there. But now they had company: regret. And the sudden, terrifying realization that I could lose both of them. Her. And the girl. I drove straight to her sister's place. I didn't call first. I didn't plan a speech. I just stood on the porch like a man with nothing left to protect but the truth. Ellie answered. She looked tired. Sad. Beautiful. My voice came out cracked and low. I'm sorry it took me so long. I was waiting to not be afraid. But that's not going to happen. So here I am. Scared out of my mind. But ready to fight for this. For you. For her. She didn't speak right away. Just stood there, searching my face for the version of me she hoped was still in there. And when her eyes softened just a little, I knew this wasn't over. We had a chance. Maybe a small one. Maybe one filled with work and uncertainty. But a chance nonetheless. We sat on her sister's porch for 2 hours that night, wrapped in a blanket, talking about everything, our fears, our hopes, the what-ifs, and even the what-nows. For the first time, we talked not like a couple divided by a dream, but as two people figuring out how to share one. Are you sure? She asked softly, somewhere around midnight. No, I said. But I'm willing. And I think that's enough to start. The following week moved fast. Faster than I was ready for. Forms. Meetings. Background checks. House visits. Training modules I never thought I'd sit through, where we learned more about trauma than I ever knew I didn't know. The days blurred into one another, but through it all, I kept showing up. Scared? Still. Uncertain? Absolutely. But I showed up. Every single time. And so did she. Together, we became something new, not just a couple, but a team. Not just partners, but future parents. We didn't talk about it like a fairy tale. We didn't paint it as some magical fix or the missing piece of our lives. We knew it would be hard. We knew it would test us. But we also knew we were ready to try. And that mattered more than anything else. We got the call on a Thursday afternoon. Dana's voice was calm but tinged with excitement. She's available. The other family withdrew. You're next in line. I swear I forgot how to breathe. Ellie gripped my hand so tight her knuckles turned white. We'd like to meet her, she said. When? Tomorrow, Dana replied. If you're ready. That night, we sat in bed silent. No TV. No distractions. Just us and the buzz of our hearts beating too loud to sleep. Do you think she'll like us? Ellie asked, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know, I said honestly, but I hope we can make her feel safe. We drove to the center the next morning like we were heading into the unknown, which in every way we were. And when we walked into that room, there she was. Small. Serious. Sitting in a chair, arms tucked tightly around her stuffed bear like it was the only thing in the world she trusted. Her eyes met Ellie's first, then mine. No smile. No tears. Just a quiet, searching look like she was taking stock of everything, calculating the risk. I knelt down. Didn't reach out. Just looked at her level. Hi, I said softly. I'm Will. This is Ellie. We don't want to scare you. We just wanted to meet you. She didn't say anything. Just stared. And then, slowly, cautiously, she nodded. Ellie smiled, the kind of smile that made me fall in love with her all over again. We're not here to make you do anything you don't want to, she said. We just want to know you. The girl blinked, then looked down at her bear. And after a few seconds, she said in the tiniest voice, his name is Charlie. That was it. The beginning. The shift. A single sentence that cracked open the wall between us. We didn't rush. We didn't overwhelm. We just sat with her. Talked about bears and cartoons and favorite snacks. And when the hour was up, she didn't want to say goodbye. Neither did we. On the drive home, Ellie cried. Quiet, beautiful tears of hope and fear and love. She's so brave, she whispered. She's stronger than both of us combined, I said, my voice thick. That night, I stood in the doorway of what used to be our guest room. It was bare now waiting. And I didn't see fear anymore. I saw a beginning. A story waiting to be written. I didn't know how it would go. None of us did. But I knew this, we were going to write it together. And for the first time, that didn't scare me. It made me feel alive. Because this wasn't about being ready. It was about being willing. And I was.